Hello and welcome to Impera project, a project built on a dream. It has been a long time since we've recommended you a book to read, and we thought that now it's actually a good time to do so. It is not because we haven't read anything these past months, but we simply didn't read anything we would consider worth recommending. Up until this week, we were shopping in a bookstore looking for books belonging to Seneca when something interesting caught our eyes. A full shelf dedicated to the works of Osamu Dazai. They finally translated them into Romanian, and that left us speechless, because we have been constantly hunting for them for years. Now we think you can guess where this discussion is going. Today we want to recommend you the flagship of Dazai's works, No Longer Human, Ningen Shikkaku in Japanese, up until this point considered one of the most valuable works of Japanese culture. But before we start this video, we would appreciate it if you'd press that subscribe button, leave a like, share and comment in which you tell us if you've read No Longer Human, and if so, what is your opinion about it. Thank you very much for your time. Now, without any further ado, let's start this video. Why should you read No Longer Human? Firstly, who was Osamu Dazai? If you are watching anime, you've probably heard this name. A reinterpretation of him as a person was introduced in the anime Bungo Stray Dogs, which, if we remember correctly, was a very popular anime at a certain moment. Maybe still is, who knows. Now, from what we can tell, the interpretation of Dazai in the anime is pretty on point, even though some aspects of his character were mildly exaggerated. Still, who was Dazai? His real name was Shuji Tsushima, and he was born on the 19th of July 1909 in a rich family. He was an average kid for most of his younger days up until his favorite writer Yonosuke Akutagawa committed suicide in 1927. In 1930, he tries to commit suicide himself for the first time with a 19-year-old girl he was in love with. Fortunately, he survives, but she doesn't, leading to him being disowned by his own family and arrested for contributing to suicide. He spends some time in a mental hospital to break his addiction to alcohol and morphine, but then finds out that his wife cheated on him and they try to commit suicide together. Both survive and they divorce. Finally, in 1948, he and the woman he left his family for successfully double suicide, their bodies being found 6 days later on the day Dazai would have turned 39. No Longer Human remains one of his most successful books together with Joseito, The Schoolgirl, Shayo, Dusk and Goodbye. No Longer Human is a semi-autobiography of his life. Some things are true, some aren't, but the book uses the same themes that have governed his real life: suicide, social alienation and depression. It's a tough book to read and even harder to understand because it depicts the life of a failed human being. Someone that has fallen so low that he can't even see himself as a part of the human race anymore. If you look closely to the following picture of Osamu Dazai, taken in his last year of life, 1948, you can see in his eyes more than sadness, more than depression. You can see the abyss, the emptiness. He was hollow. The very first line in the book sets the tone perfectly for how dark the story is going to be. I have lived a very shameful life. Now, if you know something about the Japanese culture, shameful here is not used lightly. It actually has more meaning than it has in the Western society. Shame being the opposite of honor, which was a very important aspect of Japanese culture. So by saying that, the idea is that he lived a life that wasn't worth living. The book is organized into 3 main chapters. The first one presents the life of the young Yozo, the main character who from a very young age understood that he didn't get along with other people. He simply couldn't comprehend their feelings or their way of being. It is actually presented that the main character seems to have been born with this sense of hopelessness and wasn't actually a victim of anything. He was just born different and his family did nothing to ease his struggle. I don't understand, I can't imagine what suffering means for other people besides me. How intense can it be? It always seems that those who tell me that I'm happy are uncountably happier than me. Being cursed from the start with a terrible shyness and lacking the ability to properly express his feelings, young Yozo pretends to play the fool, making people laugh, acting like a buffoon, all in an attempt to hide his sadness, because he knew people won't understand him. Playing this character, he starts to observe from afar things about people, things he did not like. But for me, the face of an angry man revealed the true nature of a wild beast scarier than a crocodile or a dragon. Usually people hide their frightening face, but there are moments when boiling with anger that the human reveals his true face. From this young age, the main character comprehends the fact that people aren't truthful. They are hiding themselves, they are playing one hell of a charade to fool others, to hide their true self. This is what society has always promoted. For me, the definition of a respected man is a man who manages to fool others with almost perfection, but who, at the moment in which he is discovered and destroyed by an omnipotent brethren, suffers such a humiliation that is more terrifying than death itself. With this attitude, he is convinced he can hide his true self from others, but no lie can last forever. The second chapter is the longest and presents most of his early years in high school and his life as a young adult. There are many things that happen here, but we don't want to spoil the book, so we will just touch briefly on some moments. As most of us tend to do when we reach a certain age, Yozo has to understand women, or at least avoid any conflicts with them. Unfortunately, it backfires terribly. Through the help of a friend, the young one discovers 3 things that will change his life for the worse: alcohol, tobacco and prostitutes. Frequently going to brothels, he starts to learn about women, thing which won't do him any favor later. And by drawing himself in bacchic pleasure, he starts to find courage, but again, nothing lasts forever. In short time, thanks to one of my peers from painting classes, I've learned the secrets of drinking, smoking, I've learned about prostitutes, about pawn shops and left-wing ideas. A strange combination, but real to the very core. In life, Dazai was a member of the Communist Party of Japan. In the book, young Yozo joins the Marxist movement. Remember that this is a time right before Japan joined World War II, and communism and Marxism were by no means tolerated by the imperial government. In a short time, I've understood that alcohol, tobacco and prostitutes were the best tools to free myself from the fear of mankind. Even be it for a moment, I've reached a point in which I was sure that it was worth selling everything I had to obtain them. That's when he meets Tsuneko, and he writes probably one of the harshest truths: when money ends, love ends. Tsuneko seems to be the character who represents the 19-year-old girl Dazai tried to commit double suicide with. Tsuneko dies and Yozo is arrested for helping someone commit suicide, which was illegal in Japan at that time. Through his father's help, the charges were dropped, but the young adult falls deeper into an existential crisis. From that point, he goes from bad to worse with each passing experience. This is a story of a man who felt so low, who hated himself and others, who couldn't comprehend the depths of society. We don't know if someone in this life deserves to feel such hatred for his own person. In the book, it seems that young Yozo was born with it, but it isn't completely excluded that one man can reach this point of hatred and disgust through the interaction with others. Some are so sensible that even velvet can cut them, like Dazai put it at a certain moment. The fear of happiness is just as common as the fear of sadness, and one cannot exist without the other. So if this book is so unpleasant and touches on so many controversial topics, why should you read it? Well, because no matter how harsh the truth is, one should always have knowledge of it. You can't run from who you are, and this book, No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai, serves as a reminder of just how much darkness can hide behind a smile. How hollow can one be, how deep are the pits of despair, and how you should always take into account that no one or very few people actually behave in the way they feel or think. Everybody hides something, and one should be mindful of that. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content related to literature, philosophy and self-development, don't forget to leave a like, share and subscribe, and we will gladly see you next time.